Hi everyone, welcome back to Creatively Crafted Life. This is Melanie, and today we are bringing you a scrapbook page. And this is actually of some recent photos that I took on my staycation here in Southern California. A really good friend of mine came down, and one of the days we drove out to Palm Springs and had a lovely lunch, and that's what I'm scrapbooking. So I'm using the Hip Kit Club kit from September 2017. It has a lot of Paige Evans product line in here, as well as a few other pieces from, I think, Amy Tangerine, and I can't remember who the other person is, but I'll link that in the information below where you can see the hip kit and all the details of what was included in the kit. So I've used this kit previously, so it's not the full kit. So all I did there was just kind of browse through what I had left, and I picked the colors that kind of coordinated and what I thought would work for this particular page. Now I am using a sketch, and the sketch is from scrapbook.com, and I believe it's by Kelly Holyfield, I believe. Holifield, sorry if I mispronounced that. I will include a link to the sketch as well, so that you can check that out for yourself. The sketch features two photos, one vertical and one horizontal, which is what I happen to have. I think though, based on the scale of the sketch, that the photos were a little smaller than what I'm using, which are 4x6 photos. So I'm starting off here very similar to the sketch in that I've picked a piece of paper to go behind the photos, and I'm also going to use the circular elements, only I am using a pinked, what do you want to call it, pink circle. I'm using some dies from Stampin' Up! To cut those circles out, and just using scraps from the kit, or in the case of this one here, it's a full 12 by 12 sheet of paper that I'm cutting down to cut the circles. So as I was saying, these photos were of my staycation, and we had driven out to Palm Springs. If you ever have the opportunity to come out to Southern California, or if even you do live in Southern California, Palm Springs is a wonderful little town to go and visit. And we had lunch, I believe it's called Jake's, and it's this really cute little restaurant. We dined outside on the patio. So from the patio, you could see that palm tree and the beautiful blue skies and a little bit of the mountains in the background. It was really quite pretty. The food was really good. We had a lovely meal and a lovely dessert. And yeah, it was good. It was a bit of a drive, but you know what? It was all about visiting and catching up with this friend of mine who I hadn't seen in quite a while, so that was quite lovely. So I have mounted the pictures or the photos on that pink cardstock, and I'm just trimming it down so that there's not much of a border, and that's really in keeping with the sketch, so I haven't changed much at this point. And of course, like always, I gotta finicky around with it and make sure that it's just so, and then it still ends up being not just so, but you know, you live with it and you go on from there. So I'm using 4 circles. 2 of them are 2 and 2 of the same size, and I'm just, you know, checking out and positioning where it is that I want them to go. Now if you were to look at the photo, you'll see that my photo base is quite large compared to the background, the 12 by 12 background, versus the sketch, which has a lot more white space in there. And so I'm just trying to figure out where the strips are going to go, and it ends up being that not much of the banner strips are going to show through, and I messed up. I was supposed to put the strips down before I laid the photos, but I didn't. So I'm just kind of piecing that in to make it work, and I'm using my T-ruler to try and make them somewhat even across the page so that they look straight. And here's the funny part. So I'm using one of the branding strips from one of the pieces of paper, and it's got some cups on it, right? And I figured, you know, we're eating food, that kind of thing, so why not use it for this particular page? And I'm really trying to place these strategically on here, and I end up almost covering them up, and you don't even see them at the end. But you know, that's how sometimes these things go. You don't always know where you're going to end up, and you just try your best and you see what happens. So in the sketch, there are 2 strips. One's thinner and one is a little bit more thicker. I chose 2 branding strips to use those instead, so they are on the thinner side, and I'm okay with having that different variety there. Okay, so now that I've got that all positioned, we're going to glue that down onto the base. I'm making sure to leave enough space so that I can tuck those elements in behind. Now in the sketch, this is a little bit off center, but not nearly as off center as what I'm doing here. And I ended up doing that just so that you could see a little more of the stripe or the strip with the coffee cup on it. So that's why I moved it over a little bit. I'm also allowing the larger circles to go off the page. I do like that look when the elements extend beyond the page. I think that looks quite interesting. And again, I think it's just because of the scale of my elements are a little bit larger than the original sketch that I have to make these adjustments for. So I have pretty much a diagonal layout going on here as far as the design goes, and that again is consistent with the sketch. The bottom 2 circles, the one on the left, the smaller one, was a striped paper, I guess. It was a sporadic striped paper, and I thought that would make a really great spot for some journaling. I'm using the gold letter stickers from HipKit, from the kit, and I spared you from having to watch me place that because it took forever. I do find with these chipboardy type letters that sticking the adhesiveness of what am I trying to say? Getting them to stick properly to the layout is sometimes a problem. So I may end up going back yet and adding a little bit of glue under those just to make sure they don't pop off. So as you can see, I did my journaling. I'm not a really great journaler, to be honest. It's usually very fact-based. I'm not really into the whole, expressing my emotions and that kind of stuff. That's just the way I am. And we'll work on it. We'll get there eventually, but for now it's much more fact-based. I did go through all the embellishments and I picked out most of the floral elements because I thought that would go really great with that floral paper that I used for one of the large circles. I also noticed that there was one of the teacups in there in one of the ephemera packs, so I thought, why not use that? Because I'm not likely to use it anywhere else. I do struggle with ephemera pieces or icons and images like that, where I tend to read them more literal as opposed to something that's not quite so, I don't know how to say it. I have a hard time using it on a page that's not about teacups or coffee or whatever, but I can make it work with food, right? Drink, food, they go together, so I'm okay with that. I don't know, do any of you guys struggle with that, and how do you get around it? Or do you just end up having these pieces sit in your stash until the right moment comes up, or do you just completely forget about them, or maybe you just get rid of them? I don't know. Anyways, leave a comment below if you struggle with using different images and how you handle that. I know Shamel Glitter Girl, aka Glitter Girl, she is doing a challenge, I think in the month of this month, which is April, all about how to use those, very specific type of icon images. And it's been very interesting reading her posts because she has some different ideas as to how to use it. It's really helped me try to think a little bit more outside of the box. So since I've been getting the kits, I've had a surplus of supplies come in. And so what I'm really have been trying to do is make sure that I use them or try to use as many as possible. And that's also stretching my design style a little bit because I tended prior to doing this, I tended to be a much more simpler scrapbooker, at least to my way of thinking, not having too many embellishments on a page, and I've definitely added way more. And it's been fun to do that. Sometimes though I get to the end and I'm like, ooh, you probably should have stopped about 2 seconds ago, but that is what it is. I suppose if I absolutely hated it, I could always go back and remove some of those elements. But for the most part, I try not to do that. I try not to go back and revisit my pages and just accept them for what they are, and as a representative of who I was and what I was into at that point in time. So I'm just going through the embellishments, trying to, add little bits here and there that make sense, and try to keep it somewhat balanced. So you'll see I'll add a star to the top and a star to the bottom. Continue on with that back and forth. So while it's not perfectly symmetrical, there is some symmetry in it, and trying to keep it balanced. I really have two main embellishment clusters, the one at the bottom and the one at the top, and then one secondary one near the title. These little bows are super cute. I struggled to use them, but I did find a place, so I was pretty pleased with myself for that. So I'm going to leave you here with a few close-ups of the page so you can see what's going on. Hope you enjoyed. Like, subscribe, and give us a comment below. And until next time, happy crafting.